Welcome to the Big Break Pod. My name is Thomas M. Copeland. I'm your host, and today we are heading to Miami. Hey, y'all. Welcome in. Big Break Pod. Door is wide open. Come on in. Have a seat. Get comfy. And take a load off, because today we are talking to my friend and accomplished independent filmmaker, Michael Ruiz-Unger. Mike is the man. I loved talking with him today. Smart guy, and really has the experience of having made a film himself, bootstrapped from the ground up. And so we talk a lot about that. The film that we really focus on is not his first film, but a big film that is called Save the Flea. And Save the Flea premiered at the Miami International Film Festival this year and won an Audience Choice Award in the short film category. That film then went on to, it's a short film, it then went on to a number of other festivals. It was then put up on his website and then taken down again because it went on to another round of film festivals, which is really cool. So we talk about that. But it's a fantastic film, and I was in it. So I was cast for it. I was cast as the bad guy. I don't think there's any spoilers that we say in the interview, but there's a couple of times that we kind of talk a little bit about what happens in the film. And if you ever get the chance to see it, you'll kind of understand why. The whole film kind of centers around these friends who hang around a flea market for the day, and then there's this bad guy, me, who comes in and tries to ruin their day. But they ultimately win the day by getting the bad guy in the end. Michael himself describes it as he's heard that it's been called a kind of a Goonies feel, kind of an adventure, sort of Indiana Jones feel. It definitely is. It's a really, really awesome film, and it was a real pleasure to be involved in it. I was really, really excited and happy to be involved in it. And so from that relationship grew a friendship with Michael that I've enjoyed just chatting with him and catching up with him from time to time. And he was gracious enough to take some time out today to join me on the pod and just kind of talk about his experiences and sort of how he came up with Save the Flea and how he planned for it and got the crew together and got the cast together, got the money together, and ultimately pulled off this shoot that was 3 days inside of a flea market in the middle of summer, which is not an easy feat to accomplish. So many kudos to him, though he tries to heap kudos on me. Really, the kudos is on him and really everybody that was involved in that film. So I hope that if you are an inspiring filmmaker out there, if you've ever thought about making something for yourself, bootstrapping it, this is a great interview for you because Michael really kind of gets into sort of how he did it, from the ground up. So I hope you pull a thing or two out of it, just like I did. So with that, let's go ahead and bring in our first guest and get it going. Stick with us.
If you're an actor serious about your craft, then you know you're serious about improving your read, your presentation, and your on-camera delivery. And there's no faster way to sharpen your skills than with detailed collaborative feedback from your fellow actors, directors, casting directors, coaches, and other creative professionals in the industry. So, how do you get in front of the people you need to impress? With Show Coach. Available for Apple and Android, this exciting app gives you a stage to showcase your work, including self-tapes, reels, and monologues, specifically to solicit feedback from the professionals who can hire you. And for a limited time, Show Coach is absolutely free to use. Industry professionals can apply to become a coach and earn money for critiquing student posts. Download the app as a student or coach from your mobile app store or visit showcoach.app. That's showcoach.app to learn more. Show Coach, artists encouraging greatness.
All right, so the guest here today is Michael Ruiz-Unger. He's a Cuban-American filmmaker who grew up around Miami's underground punk scene. By the way, I grew up in the West Palm Beach punk scene, so we might have some other things to talk about there. Yeah, that's right.
For sure.
But really, he cut his teeth in filming short films and music videos, and in college had an internship with Oscilloscope Laboratories. 2016, you also created a comic book, a graphic dark novel, Dark Beach, that's with Simon and Schuster and is now optioned at Fabula. And the big thing that I'm really excited about is in 2022, you were given funding by the Miami Film Festival to create your short film, Save the Flea, which I was really proud and really excited to be in.
You're in it.
What a great film.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that went
yeah.
on to win Audience Choice, I believe, for the Miami Film Festival, an Audience
Yes.
Award, as well as a few other film fests. So I'd love to learn a little bit about where that film is today. But first, let's just start with you and how you're doing, man. How's the wet streets of Miami treating you? I know it's pouring up here today. How about you down there?
Yeah, it's looking like it's getting there today. And by the way, I'm in my own shed that I converted to an office because the baby took my office room. So like if it starts raining, you might hear like the rain magnified times 100 because like the aluminum roof.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So hopefully, and I think we should be good.
Good.
But no, I'm good, man. How are you, brother?
Oh, I'm great, man. We were just kind of chatting, getting started here, and it's been a
Right.
busy month. The last 6 weeks, there's been a lot of jobs that I've picked up here, both in Miami and West Palm Beach, which has been great. I also did a film in Atlanta for 2 weeks as well, so it's been busy. It's been fun. Suddenly, out of nowhere,
Yeah.
I guess the market decided summer of 2024 is when we're just gonna do a bunch of work all at once. But
Awesome.
yeah, so it's been good. By the way, how is your baby? My baby is now 2 years old. I think yours is not that far behind ours.
Yeah, she's about 1.5. And I
Uh-huh.
remember you brought yours to the premiere
Yeah.
of the movie, which was like awesome because I was like, holy shit, I didn't know you could bring a baby to a movie theater, and you're like, whatever, like
I didn't know
And
either.
I remember,
I didn't know either. I'm surprised. I'm surprised my wife went along with it, honestly. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. The baby, I think, at that point was maybe 6 months old, so she was still in the what I call the
oh,
proverbial
wow.
blob stage, the carbon
Yeah,
the
right,
carbon
right,
blob stage, which she has since grown out.
right.
But that's right. That premiere was a lot of fun. That
Yeah.
was. Really, really well attended. I mean, I remember seeing all of the short films all screen at once, and I think ours came towards the end, if not really almost at the end. So there's a lot of
Well,
anticipation for
actually,
me.
you went to the first screening actually when your wife was pregnant,
Uh huh.
and that was like the test screening.
Oh, that's right. There were two screenings. One was at
Right.
there was it was a movie theater in Little Havana, if I remember correctly.
The Tower Theater,
The Tower
which
Theater.
is not functional now,
Mm.
due to some political issues. They just like the Miami-Dade owned it, and then I guess I don't know what happened. Like the contract expired, and now it's just sitting empty. So we were kind of like the last screening, I think, which is
Well,
super sad because that theater is awesome.
yeah, as sad as that is, and really generally how the arts are sort of funded and treated in Florida, generally speaking, is a whole
Yeah,
other
yeah,
unfortunate
yeah.
conversation. But yeah, that's really a bummer. That was a beautiful theater, a lot of history, as I understood it too. Something like 80 years old, been around
Oh
forever.
yeah, yeah,
Very,
yeah, yeah,
very,
yeah.
very cool building. I too am glad that we got to share some time in there. But then it did screen at the Miami Film Festival with the shorts, and I think
Yes.
that was bunched up with a number of other really, really excellent shorts. There was some really good
Yeah.
ones in there that I was really impressed with.
Yes.
And
There
I
was.
wouldn't be able to venture off on who the filmmakers were. If you had a short film screen, in 2023 Miami Film
Yeah.
Festival, we'd love to hear from you. But anyway, the bottom line is I remember specifically when I'm not going to reveal anything, but like our big scene of the film, which is
Yeah,
if you've
yeah,
seen
yeah,
it or you're
yeah.
going to see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Man, that whole theater just lit up. And that was a lot of fun, man. That was awesome. So no
It was
surprise.
yeah, it was a great reaction. But actually I feel like the first screening, because it was that first screening was like a mix of a bunch of us that got a grant to make a short film
Mhm.
through Oolite, which you had mentioned. So they gave, and I don't know if I'm jumping like
Jump.
whatever the outline is of the interview that you have set up. But yeah, they gave 5 or 6 of us $15,000 to make a short film based on the theme of family. And I was like, yeah, I guess I was kind of already working on Save the Flea. And I was like, yeah, sure, that kind of fits the theme a little bit. And so that screening was like the group of 5 or 6 of us showing our like work in progress. But for me, I was like, for this to get a good reaction, like I need it to be as complete as it could be. And 2 days before we had just finished the visual effects for the ending shot.
Wow.
So that was either going to screen with like a work in progress
Uh-huh.
kind of a situation, or like kind of like the final setup, the final VFX pass, and I slipped it in like a day before, and like I remember like people were cheering, people were laughing, people were fucking shocked,
Yeah, totally.
you know, and that's the beauty of that short film is like you kind of like you don't know where it's heading.
Totally.
Like you do not expect that ending to happen at all.
Not at all. It starts to build up to something. Again, not revealing enough, not revealing too much here, but it starts to build up to something in that scene, and then it just goes somewhere that you're like, oh shit. I remember people coming up at both screenings to me so happy because I was such a piece of shit character in the film that they loved to see that ending. So we'll leave it at that. You gotta see it. Is it, by the way, is it available anywhere now? Is Save the Flea available anywhere now?
So it had its festival run all of like 2023, and then I had put it online around almost a year ago in October. And then for some reason I like started getting asked to like submit to other festivals, and I was like, oh, maybe like there's like a second life to this. And then I started submitting to other festivals, so I kind of like made it private again.
Got it.
Yeah, and then because like I didn't want people who knew that it was in certain festivals to like not go because it's online.
Yeah.
So respectfully, I just kind of like made it private again. Because it played at Comic-Con, which was like huge.
Huge.
And I went to that one. It was great. And then it just won Best Short Film at the Houston Horror Film Festival.
Wow, that's awesome.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
That's great.
So I think by October, the end of October, the festival run will be officially over, and I'll have it online again.
So I'm curious about that, the mechanics of that. So you mentioned that you kind of took it down voluntarily on your own.
Yeah.
Recognition. I'm curious. Is that like good film festival etiquette that you take it down? Are there like rules and requirements that it's not published when you're shopping it around the different film festivals? I'm kind of curious how that works.
Yeah, some festivals don't. Some festivals don't care that it's online, and a majority of them, I feel like they do. Because they want you to go to the festival, they want to attract people, and they don't want to like have films that like are available online. They want it to be like have an exclusive. I can't even say the word.
Exclusivity almost.
Yes.
Right,
yes,
right,
exactly. Damn, I couldn't say that word. So yeah, out of respect, but I made it private again.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's still getting accepted to film festivals, which is great. But yeah, in October it should be done. Like I gotta put it down.
Yeah. So do you keep running it? You mentioned sort of a second life, which is really interesting. So you'll essentially keep running it in as many film festivals as you can until that request kind of starts to trickle down, right? And then where else can it go besides being posted online? I mean, what else can you do post sort of film festival life? What typically might happen or what could happen?
For a short film, I don't think there's much. I mean, there's like I think a place called shorts.tv that like they'll buy short films, but then like it just goes online. So
yeah,
if you're looking for a quick $400, like maybe that's an option. I was lucky enough that it got picked up by PBS, and it actually played on PBS locally.
Yes, I remember. That was great. That was recent. That was maybe less than a month ago. I think my whole family watched it, actually. I sent out to my family text.
Awesome.
That's right. Yeah, I sent it out. Because I don't think they had seen it, aside from my wife, because she was at the premieres, but I don't think the rest of my family had seen it. So I shot it out there. And actually, all of my employees, too, of Vinegrit, the company.
Oh, nice.
And they all, like, our Slack channel was lit up the next day with, like, everybody was fired up about it. They thought it was great. So.
Oh, okay.
It was awesome. But I did see that it was on PBS. Is that something that you submitted yourself to? Was that something that you saw an opportunity to submit for?
Yeah. I think somebody sent me the, like, I don't know, the submission flyer for it. I submitted it, and then it got accepted, and they actually gave me like whatever, $500.
Hey,
to show, which was like I was like, hey, I haven't received any money from anything,
Is that true?
for
So the film festivals don't necessarily pay. They don't necessarily
No,
offer
unless you
pay.
win like a super big prize, and not every festival like has that prize. Like, they'll give you like a certificate or a trophy or something like that, but a cash prize is like very rare.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
So
So then,
it's not often.
so I mean, at the end of the day, then this is really getting back to kind of where we started. I mean, this is
Yeah.
very much a passion project for you. I mean, this was something that you wrote
Totally.
that was very personal to you in terms of the background and the setting. I understand, obviously it's all set at a flea, and you spent a lot of time at that flea market that we actually shot at. So I want to ask you, kind of going back to that place and sort of formative years of kind of tinkering with filmmaking. I'm curious, where do you think that your creativity for sort of writing and producing these kinds of things, where do you think that came from? And I'm just kind of curious to like your background in your childhood. I mean, was that something that was very much encouraged in your household, or is that something that kind of just grew over time? Or like, was it true that you were the kid at 9 years old, you had that camera, that camcorder, and you were filming, the army men burning up and blowing up? Tell me a little about kind of where that all stemmed from.
So I think, it really started with I had a lot of alone time. So it's really that kind of route where like I had a lot of alone time, and for some reason my parents let me have a TV in my room,
Uh-huh.
and I would just fucking watch a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of stuff that I shouldn't have.
VHS, DVDs,
Yeah,
all the good stuff.
everything, VHS, like everything. I remember during Hurricane Andrew, I had like one tape, and it was Wayne's World, and I would just watch that like over and over and over and over again. Um, so yeah, and then I'm starting to remember like now, since I have a kid, I'm starting to like remember, like it's weird, like I'm tapping into like what I did when I was younger. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's happening to you,
yeah.
because I had like kind of forgot about a lot of stuff,
As
and
we
now I'm
do, as
sort
we
of like,
grow. Yeah, as we do.
yeah. And so I remember my mom taking me to like a lot of movies, just me and her, and then yeah, just having a TV in my room, and then that sort of developed more into a love of like music. I played in a couple bands in high school, like even did like a couple tours in high school, which was like kind of wild to think of, like, when you're 16, like just hit the road like
Out
that.
of a van, that's right.
Yeah, which was like amazing.
Uh-huh.
And then no, I got my first camera senior year of high school, and I wish I had gotten a camera like earlier, and like but wait, let me take it back. My dad did have like a little high 8 camera that on vacations, like I would grab, and like I would film mainly like all the family vacation stuff. But really it got kind of not like semi-serious like when I bought my first little digital camera senior year. And again, like I wish I had it earlier. And actually my dad, I remember he tried to buy me a camera, and he actually bought me like a photography camera. And I was like, oh man, that's great, but like I wanted a video camera. So
I remember back in middle school, there was these camcorders you could buy that probably had the little tapes on them. I'm not going to be technical about this. I'm not going to know what they were, but I think they were little tapes, little camcorder recorder.
Yeah.
But it would film video, but it was like grainy, black, all pixelated. And I'm pretty sure it was like the cheap camcorder you could buy from like a Target. It was like the thing you bought for kids. Did you have anything like that, or was it really just in high school you kind of bought your first thing and you were able to like?
So my dad had like a high 8 camera, which was like those tapes.
Yeah, maybe
Not
that's
the
the same
mini.
thing.
They're not like, so. There's mini DV tape, which is like the smallest one, and then there's a high 8 tape which came before, which is like kind of like a smaller VHS kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So he had that, and yeah, anytime we went on vacation, like I would be the one filming, but I wouldn't really make stories. I just like love to see life out of that, out of that device. And then finally senior year, like I got that digital camera, and I started making like little movies here and there with like my friends.
Yeah, interesting. So my brother, who's on the show from time to time on the Ask a Producer segments, talked about something that I thought was really interesting. We were talking about directors and directing from his perspective as a producer. And he talked about something that I have actually seen but never recognized it until he mentioned it, which is that you have two different kinds of directors, right? You have the director that's really interested in the technical side of things. So like the type of camera, the angle, what type of lens are we using, right? What's the color saturation, yada, yada, yada. And you have the director who's really just interested in the actors and, bringing out the emotion of the scene and could give a damn less about, which camera we're using, right? Leave that to the DP.
Right.
I'm curious, when you hear that, and you talk a little bit about how you just grabbed that camcorder and just kind of captured the moment and seeing it through the lens. I just wonder where on that aspect you kind of see yourself lining up on. Like today, as a director today, where do you see yourself lining up on it? Or do you not see it as like a one-in-one? Do you see a nice mix of the two?
No, well, I feel like in stages of my life, it's been one or the other. So like, I guess when I had my dad's high eight, it was, it's just a childlike wonder. Wasn't thinking like, oh, I should have like a better camera. No, it's just like composition and, just filming funny shit. And then as I got into like buying cameras, it became more of that. As the digital cameras became more consumer, like you could buy one yourself.
You had choices, right? You would have different models, different choices, different price,
Yeah,
and different
and
technical capabilities.
Yeah, like, technically it was like, yeah, a lot of those cameras before were like 30 frames per second, and then finally like a digital one came with like 24 frames per second, which is like more like film, made everything more cinematic. So then, I feel like in college I did get sort of obsessed with like, I need this camera to do this, and like, and I need to like figure it out, like how to rent that camera or buy that camera. And then, as I got older, like, and I kind of lined up with Save the Flea, it was like, well, it's just really all about the story, like I don't give a shit what camera it is. I just want to pick like the right actors for this. I want the script to be like where I want it to be, and and I think if the story's good, I think all you got to do is bring up the camera and start recording. I mean, I say that, but like we had a great DP on
Definitely.
on our shorts.
Sherman Johnson, I believe, right?
Yeah,
He's fantastic. Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm curious then, with Save the Flea or anything else that you may have written and worked on, and maybe this is a good question for things that you've written and worked on that haven't quite come to light yet or may never come to light, because of course I'm sure you have those scripts too. I know I have those scripts. I'm curious. So, when you're writing a script for something as obviously Save the Flea, when you won the award, you made the decision Save the Flea is the one that you're going to go with. I assume you have other scripts and stuff, but Save the Flea was the one that was really already on its way. So tell me a little bit about kind of your process, and I'm really kind of curious about not so much the successes, because you've had the success. Congratulations, it's already been created and run, and it's on film. Fantastic, right? But
that's all due. First of all, that's all due in part because you're in it too.
Come on. Yeah. Well, and cast, crew, right idea, right time, money. I mean, all that stuff lines up, right? I'm curious about maybe some of the scripts that you've written that you've been really passionate about, that you really cared about, that maybe never quite made it to the light of day, and what kinds of blocks you may have run into or felt as a writer that maybe weren't there on Save the Flea. I'm curious, was Save the Flea, from a writing perspective, something that kind of just poured out onto the page and it just created itself, or did you really struggle with writing that script?
I'm trying to think. I think with that, it's always a culmination of like ideas. So the way that movie came about, and for those who don't know, it's about it's about two kids that go on like a date at a flea market, trying to find like a lucky charm to try to save the flea market from being bought out by overdevelopers.
By this guy.
By you. And so yeah, like I remember going to the flea market. I think what's it called? Like the major one with like the movie screens. Oh, what's it called? I'm blanking.
In Miami? I don't know. I know
Swap Shop.
Swap Shop. Sure. Yeah.
So I remember going there with a buddy of mine, and like he needed to go there to like draw some stuff, and then I just wandered around by myself, and I started to really notice that like there were families that occupied each of the booths. They're family run businesses, and then I started to notice like, oh, like those families have kids, and then like I started to notice those kids would like kind of venture off by themselves, and then they would like I started to notice that they were like meeting each other and like eating and like just walking around with each other and like looking at other booths, and so that kind of like that's where the idea sort of like started. And then I started going to other flea markets, started seeing the same things. So this is like a progression of like a year and a half where like, okay, like I kind of want to do something with flea markets. And then that evolved with like, oh, it should be kind of like a Goonies type of adventure.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then, like,
Which
and
it
then it
totally
was like,
has. Yeah. Which it totally
yeah,
has.
totally. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
They're like,
Totally.
oh, like it feels like the Goonies. Uh, and then yeah, and then you're like, all right, what's the story? Like, how crazy can I get?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially with ours, like I didn't know how to do a practical effect at all. I didn't know how to like make something explode and blood come out
Without
of it.
revealing. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, and I did actually a lot of tests like on myself. Like I would set the camera up and like
Oh,
throw like
interesting.
fake blood at me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have tons of that footage.
Oh, wow.
Trying to get back to the question. No, and then when I finally like sat down to write it,
Hmm.
it took a little bit. It's never, what? It's for me, like I'm not a person that like I sit every day and write.
Right.
And I was told like in college, like, you gotta write every day and all this shit. But like life happens, man. Like,
Totally.
like family stuff happens. It's hard to like write every day. Sometimes you're not inspired.
Hmm.
And most of the times, like, it's even if you write 2 pages of shit, like you can go back and revise it. But for me, like it's either like I do 20 pages at once or I do none.
Hmm.
And so it was kind of a struggle. And that's kind of been like my thing with other scripts too. It's like, I get the idea and I kind of walk about it in my head for a while until like I'm ready to like sit down and write. And maybe it'll be like, 5 or 6 pages and the next day will be 10. And then like for 2 months, it'll be zero.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of a fucked up process.
Yeah.
It's like having homework, which sucks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, I could totally relate to that. I sort of feel the same. And there was really only one instance where I didn't have the route you just described, which is that you think about it,
Right.
you chew on it, you mull it, then eventually you start
Right.
to form it. I only had one
Right.
time when that wasn't true, and it was the first act of a play that I wrote about, and I do hope to have it done one day, so I will keep it short. But essentially about cavemen, and it's a farce, and it's really funny about these cavemen trying to survive.
Oh, nice.
And so when the first act just poured out of me, like I had the idea, I chewed on it, and I had the idea because it actually came from maybe like an NPR podcast or something where I heard
Right.
some New York Magazine story I heard about how Neanderthals are actually a lot smarter than we ever thought they were. And I also learned that it's Neanderthals, I believe. But they're a lot smarter than we thought they were. And then I was like, well, how funny would it be if like Neanderthals just existed today and like they were in today's world? And what would that be? So like that was act one. And act one just poured out of me. I mean, I sat down on like a Friday morning and I pulled up final script. I forget what I got. Final cut, final pro, whatever.
Final draft.
Thank you. Final draft. Pulled it up and like it just poured out of me. And then like it took forever. It probably took me about 9 more months to like figure out act 2 and how it ends. But I did finally figure it out. Yep. And it's almost basically written. So I say all that to say I resonate with you. Have you ever had the moments though also when like things just pour out? Like when those 20 pages come out, do they just pour out for you? Have you had those moments?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And even if they're like not that great, at least I have like those 20 pages to like kind of revise upon. And I'm sort of kind of getting into that way of writing is that, just try to push through it. Because the next day you could kind of, you could revise it. At least you have something. Like staring at a blank screen is tough because usually like when you get an idea, it's either, or for me, it's either like I have the beginning of it or the end of it. And the middle part is like hard to like, to figure out and try to connect the dots. So yeah, I'm just trying to like, just trying to like, even if it sucks, just get it out. Like the vomit draft is what
Yeah.
they kind of call it.
Yeah, throw it all on paper and see how it all sticks out.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So then, kind of looking ahead, and especially looking at Save the Flea, and then maybe thinking about whatever your next projects might be that are either formed or forming or may form in the future. We did talk just a minute ago about kind of how, there are all these elements that come into creating a film like Save the Flea, right? I mean, it's sort of like where you're at in life as a writer, I think matters. I think having so that you can have the right script. We talk about the right crew. We talked about the right cast. Yeah. We talked about the funding, right? Those are kind of 4 big elements you need. When you think about Save the Flea, and maybe even thinking about future, and maybe for any other like aspiring filmmakers who listen to this, do you think that you actively work on putting those 4 pieces together, or do you think that they come together in a moment of luck and just timing? Like, how do you feel about those 2 things? Can you make a film? Can you make it happen, or do you gotta wait and let the magic take its part?
That's a great question, dude. And Save the Flea is like a perfect example of it, because it's like, I think overall you need to like have the ambition and drive to just push through, because there was so many days where I was like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
It's not fucking happening. Like, the funding came first. I mean, the idea came, and that formed for like a while, and then funding came for it, and then now it's like, oh shit, now I gotta write it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Those are all like, those parts came easy-ish, but then like, getting the crew together, like for like the DP, I remember like kind of, because that was the first time I worked with Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
I had another DP who was interested, and he like read the script. He's like, oh, I love it. He's like, how many days do we have to do it? I was like, 3. And he was like, there's no way. Like 8, 6, 7 pages a day, like at a flea market in the summer. And he's like, no way. It's like impossible. And actually, he like didn't tell me no, and I didn't hear from him for like a while. So I was like, dude, are you doing this or not? Like, what the fuck is happening? And then finally he was like, look, like, schedule wise, but also like, I don't think it could be done.
Oh,
and then that's when I met Sherman through our producer Ale. And he was like all for it. He was like, oh, this is great. Like, and he comes from like a commercial background.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I feel like anytime he gets a chance to do narrative, like he jumps at it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, if it's like the right story that he loves and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the first time I met him. And then like, I remember we were supposed to shoot.
Wait, sorry. Did you just cold pitch him? Did you just cold pitch Sherman with the script?
Yeah. I had never met him before at all.
That's great.
So I was like, dude, here's the script. And he's just one of those, I mean, honestly, like he's one of those dudes now that like, every time I see him, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm going to be with him for like 5 or 6 hours, because we're just talking about movies. And that's like the perfect relationship to have with your DP.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him, we're in a parking line. I was like, all right, man, I gotta go. And we stayed another 2 hours, like literally standing up talking about movies.
It's like your first girlfriend.
Yeah. Dude, pretty much. I fell in love with him. And then at one point he got sick, and we had to push everything back, which saved you, because I remember you couldn't do it at one point because you were in Europe.
That's right. I had a trip in
which
Europe.
I was super fucking bummed about, because like you were always my first choice. And yeah, I remember like you're like, nah, I'm gonna be in Europe, and then I think we pushed it because he got sick, and you're like, actually, I'm coming. I'll be back. Like
that's
I
right.
Think you filmed like the day you got back.
I think you're right. I think that timing just it was really tight. It was a really, really tight timeline. I remember that, but I think you're right. I think I may have actually flown into Miami International, went home for a night, came back to a flea market next door to Miami International Airport. I think it was like next door too.
Oh yeah, which was like a sound design nightmare.
yeah.
But
Airplane,
our sound,
plane,
play every 5 minutes. But kudos to the sound guy, Joel Hernandez, which like he was the one that he was on like doing location sound, but he also did the sound design.
Got it.
So he got all his planes out, which is like fucking incredible.
Awesome. Yeah,
But
that must have been a
I
post nightmare.
remember, yeah, I don't know how you felt coming into set, like, yeah, like what were your,
Oh God, yeah. No, how did I feel coming to set? I remember I don't I'm such a I'm such like a go with the flow that like you could
you're a good
probably
sport.
yeah, you could probably stick me in like the Seine River in Paris and be like, all right, can you float for an hour while we shoot this? And I'd be like, I guess so. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I remember walking in, and
Yeah.
I have to tell you, it's funny you said something that reminds me of this moment of walking in because you talked about how when you were first on the flea market and you'd sort of see like these kids go off in these families, and you'd sort of see like
Right.
the booths, and like these kids will go off and do their own adventure.
Right.
I did feel that walking in. Since you mentioned that, I really did feel that in thinking back through walking onto that set, because especially that flea market. And the interesting thing that you didn't mention, which is true, but I know you know it, which is that those are generations of people at those flea markets,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
That's
correct.
generation
Yeah.
after generation, maybe 2 generations, maybe more, right?
Yeah.
There's probably kids that are there now that are getting groomed to take that booth over. So there's
Yeah.
just, you walk in and it's just like, it's this ecosystem that has been
Exactly.
unchanged for 40 years, right? However long that flea market's been around, 40, 50 years. And it's been it's like none of the outside world seeps in. It's like it's the same for decades after decades, where it's just like people that are there that are selling these wares to make money for the day, to be able to eat and put food on their family's table. And it's like this vibrant live ecosystem. I mean, I remember I think I walked past walking on set for the first time. I think I walked past like an outdoor, pet store, and I was like, okay, there's an outdoor pet store, and like chickens walking around, and just so it was.
Well, you know why they have those outdoor pet stores, right?
Why is that?
Those are like sacrificial animals.
Are they really?
Yeah, like chickens and bunnies and shit. Yeah.
For like, am I guessing? I'm guessing here, but am I guessing for like maybe the Haitian community of Miami? Is that?
It could be. Yeah, like Santeria type stuff.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That changes things. That makes that place a lot scarier, Michael. That place. No, but
I don't want to generalize, but I'm gonna think I'm gonna guess that's.
Well, you grew up there, so you know.
Well, okay, so I mean, I went to the swamp shop a lot, but like, so that's another whole conversation. Getting permission to film at a flea market.
Oh, I bet you got to like find the owner who's the owner of another shell company.
Yeah, yeah. So like growing up, I didn't grow up in that specific flea market. Like I went to like several others, and especially this one in Homestead called the Redlands Flea Market. And I found the owner of that one, and he was like, "Don't ever contact me again." Like they don't want you filming there. And for some reason, this specific flea market, they said yes. And I was like, all right, this is the spot. Like, this is where we got to be.
I'm with you now. But it's reminiscent of like every flea market I've ever stepped into.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
totally.
It's like a hereditarily sealed like ecosystem, And so I remember that walking in, and I remember, I even remember on the day we cut, I remember walking over to the exact fruit stand I wanted to go to buy a couple of pineapples and a couple of mangoes, because shit looked amazing. Like that looked like that came off of somebody's backyard that morning, So, so it was very cool. It was a really cool experience, and I remember really enjoying it. I have to also say that I think that screening was maybe the first screening I'd ever done, because up to that point, I had done, I had done a lot of just stage. Like really, at the time that I met you, I was really a stage actor, and I think that might have been. I think Save the Flea might have been my first time stepping onto a short film set, and also having the experience of like watching the film on a screening, and then like watching it go to film festivals and watching it make its round.
Nice,
like it was just very cool. It was very cool to watch that happen. So yeah, up to that point, I had really been a stage actor. So and still am, I suppose, but. So it was kind of a first for me too, and I really loved it, man. It was awesome. It's a great film, and like I said, it does seem like it's one of those rare situations where a bunch of pieces all come together at once, right?
They did, and that all the actors, and for the kids, I don't know. If
the kids were great. The kids were great.
They're fantastic, and like I had like 15 or 16 of them kind of auditioned together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was I would kind of group them
Mm-hmm.
and see which group like worked well with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So and those were like those were the four that were like they just looked good together. They like played well together, acted well together. They vibed with each other. Yeah, and that I mean everything. There's a huge bit of luck that goes into it. To go back to your other question,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that luck comes your way if you push hard, in what you need to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have shitty days. Like I said, there was tons of days where it wasn't gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
No flea market wanted us to shoot there. I was like, I picked the most impossible thing to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, slowly you kind of have to like keep knocking on that door, and then things do open. Meeting certain people, and I was like, how the hell am I gonna like do that last shot with the effects? And then I found a dude that I knew from another dude who was super into it, and he was like, all right, you gotta like, when you're on set. I remember we scanned your head.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
And it
was
was like this whole thing. Yeah.
that was also a exercise in, I would say, patience and stamina.
Yeah. Especially
You know,
that day was like that was the
it was the
last
end of the
and,
day. It was the end of the shoot. It
yeah.
was like in a hot warehouse.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
it was something.
Yeah.
The other thing that I remember too of walking on set. I don't know if you remember, but at one point, I think you told me either by email or phone that you didn't want to do a rehearsal because you wanted the kids to just see me.
I
Right?
think so, yeah.
Do you remember
I
that?
believe so.
So,
Yeah, I
so
do.
however that came out, that's what happened. And I remember walking onto that set going, all right, I'm just going to be this guy from the very, very moment.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think like the really nice young kid was like,
Yeah.
hey man, I'm blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm playing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah.
And he's
that
like,
sounds like our
good.
mother,
I'm good. I'm good. Go get something to drink real quick. And so I remember that too. That was
Right.
that was awesome. But that's really interesting. I also think a lot about that too, in sort of like writing out and sketching like out like treatments for like other ideas I have. And I do often think about set location and feasibility when writing as well. And it's true that if like we're doing this stuff for the first time and we've never done this before, we're not like an experienced scene scout, right? We're not an experienced scouter.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how a flea market is going to react to us trying to see if we can shoot there. You know what I mean? Or like it's relatively easy to shoot at an airport because of course there's a film commission for that county or whatever, and like it's a form, right? It's paperwork, and you got to pay for a sheriff or whatever. But we have to also consider when writing treatments and scripts and ideas. I think it is important to kind of consider exactly where does this take place, because everything you add onto it can increase budget and make it less feasible to do. If you're writing a scene piece,
but it's like you don't want to you don't want to hold back your imagination. But I guess like the more real it becomes and you get money to like actually make it, then some things are like, oh, okay, well, like this is kind of impossible, or they're gonna ask for like a lot of more money. Filming at the flea market is like like it was a huge accomplishment because it's kind of crazy to do it because like you said, there's like huge ecosystem. But also when we were there, and I don't know if you noticed, like that first scene that we did in the outdoor like food truck restaurant, those people were like, oh yeah, you could shoot here. And then when we showed up, they're like, oh, I didn't think you were gonna show up. And then all of a sudden they're like, how long are you gonna take? And like, oh, you guys are here way too long. And like, and then we had to like, they were asking for like $200 like on the spot. Like it was crazy. And then like that food truck was supposed to feed us for lunch, and the guy was like, yeah, it's just $8 a plate. And then like when I went to pay, he was like, nah, it's $16 a plate. It was like, dude, you just fucked me on the budget, man. Like it's crazy.
it blew
Like
the entire budget.
Our whole lunch budget was like out the window for that one fucking lunch. But and then every time we were filming outside, I don't know if you remember, it was like, oh, I don't know if you were part of this. It's like we would film like in these booths or near the booths, and then like other people would see it and they would turn their boom boxes on,
I don't remember that.
And then,
That's funny.
yeah, and then we're like, dude, like, can you turn it down or turn it off because we're filming? And they're like, no. And so we had to grease them up, and then other booths.
Slip him a 20.
Yeah, yeah, no. Every day on set, I would have to have like $200 of cash, and then like
Petty cash.
other booths would like catch on, and then one would turn the music down, and then the other one would turn it up. And I was like, dude. It was a kind of a fucking nightmare.
What a nightmare! I don't remember
yeah.
that. That's fucking yeah. What a nightmare! Jesus,
Yeah.
you got to grease up palms just to get a shot off.
Yeah, but to that point, like, I wanted to do more. I like to shoot what's on the script, but then kind of like play around a little bit. But with Save the Flea, it was so tight
Yeah.
that like I only got in the can what I needed to, which I loved, But I feel like I will criticize myself. Like there was, because I also edited the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't that element of surprise in the editing process. Like it was pretty much like scene.
Yeah.
What I wanted to shoot. There wasn't that many like kind of going off the script and shooting something different or like in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just for the next time. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, but I mean that also would have saved. I would imagine not being a
would have added more
filmmaker. Yeah, I'd imagine that you saved a bunch of time and headache and knowing that you were there.
Totally.
On set watching what was being filmed. You knew the takes you wanted. Were you marking things down, or did you just go back afterwards and you looked through the footage and you knew which takes were the right takes?
I had like my shot list every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so like anal about stuff, and like I'm like I kind of imagine it. I imagine these shots in my head so much that like I just knew like what I needed to get.
Mm-hmm.
Which shots, like what angles I needed coverage on, to complete the story.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a thing to that. Like I over prepared. I over prepared so much that I didn't do those things like that I just mentioned. Like like let's cut here and like let's take the camera at this angle. Let's kind of ad lib a line here. There wasn't much of that, and there wasn't any room for that because honestly, like we were with kids too, and like their families were there.
Yeah.
And it's a flea market. Like, I remember the security guard being like, "You guys need to like take care of your stuff because this is like a flea market."
Yeah,
a couple months ago, like people got robbed here.
Yeah.
And dude, I don't know if we talked about this, but like 2 months after we filmed, like the flea market like exploded.
I did hear about that. I heard there was a big fire in the warehouse that we shot a lot of the scenes.
Well, it caught on to the warehouse, but it was like one of those food trucks that had like an old propane.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. Oh Jesus.
Yeah, so it like caught on fire and like it spread to the warehouse.
Oh my goodness.
And it actually happened. So it happened like 2 months after we filmed, and then it happened like a year after we filmed.
They just let it happen again. Nobody was there to say, "Hey, no more propane takes," because we learned a lesson.
Yeah, no, and I live close to that flea market actually.
Uh-huh.
And that first fire was so massive, I saw it from my house.
Holy shit! Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
We got in and out at just the right time. I have to heap a bunch of praise on you, man, as we start to kind of close out the discussion on the film because. I often think about and sort of ambition to write and direct and produce something, at some point in my sort of creative endeavors and career. And I think it's so cool to watch and have been so close to somebody who did it and who did it so well. I mean, it was a really well-run production from start to finish. I mean, we were on time. Call sheets were on point. Yeah, everybody knew what they were doing when they were doing it. People were calling out points. It was just everybody was tight. There were rehearsals. It was just tight, man. It was well run. I would have never known. And that was your first film, is that right?
Well, no, I've done a couple other shorts, but this is the one that was like the script was tight. It was a script that was like I knew that like I was gonna love it. I was gonna love making it. I loved writing it, and I knew that was gonna translate on screen.
Well,
Like,
that came through not only on screen but on set too. And so,
yes,
like to my point, it's like I would have never known if you were a first-time filmmaker or a 10 this was your 10th film. It wasn't clear. It was clear to me that this was a well-run professional set with people who knew what the hell they were doing. And I've been on sets that weren't that. So all the kudos, man, that you were able to sort of seize on a great story, the right crew, right cast, right time, put it together, got it out there. It won some awards, made its film runs, man. That's really fantastic, and I'm really proud and excited that I've been part of it. So thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, there's more on the horizon for sure.
Yeah, please. I was actually gonna go right into tell us a little bit about kind of what you're looking at going forward. We'd love to hear about it.
So I'm almost done with like a feature script with a buddy of mine who actually did the music for Save the Flea. So we're all cinephiles, like so he does the music and he can write. So I'm almost done with that. And that one is like, it's cool. It's like a punk rock noir kind of a film that takes place like inside of a 24-hour period. And so,
got some Kevin Smith vibes there a little bit.
I would say, ever seen that movie After Hours by Scorsese? It's one of his like unknown, sort of like not as popular as like his main ones, but it's kind of like had a resurgence because like Criterion Collection just put it out. And it's a cool thing. It's like it takes place in 24 hours. A bunch of shit happens. He gets in trouble. Like he has to try to find his way back. That kind of adventure, like rabbit hole type thing.
So almost like the Warriors a little bit, kind of some Warriors vibe.
So the Warriors is a big influence on this.
Is it? That's awesome. Well. That's great. I love that film. Love that film.
That's like one of my favorite movies.
Me too.
And so even I feel like even the soundtrack might be a little bit reminiscent of that as well.
That's awesome.
So that, and then I have like another one that should have followed up Save the Flea, but that'll cost more money. But the other one that I mentioned, I could do for like 70, 80 grand. I hold that saying I'm gonna hold my breath saying that, but that's you have to write something. You can't write something that's gonna be $1 million at first. I mean, because who's gonna give me $1 million?
Right. Well, maybe somebody out there saw Save the Flea and wants to give you something. So let's make sure that we pitch your social here, make sure people can get a hold of you. But before we go, one last question, which is, I'm curious, you've gone through sort of the channels of, I'm going to call it bureaucracy, not necessarily in the government, but maybe sort of in the quasi-government of like funding and film, like these film festivals are structured, right? And so I'm curious, sort of just as kind of a way to break, how do you see the future of filmmaking in Florida?
I mean, I think the state of filmmaking right now is interesting, right? So it's such a loaded question.
It is, I said it was the last one. You thought it was going to be a softball, but then I laid a cement brick on you.
I mean, because streaming is like kind of fucked. It's kind of messed up a lot of things. Yeah. A lot of people are making like a lot of things for like a lot of money, and I guess they weren't the bigger companies weren't seeing the money back. So things are super tight. I think on an independent level, it's a great time right now. Like you have to make your own stuff, and do it for as little money as possible. It used to be like, you can make a short and then like that short will attract money to make a feature. Now oddly, I think, and I could be wrong about all this. Now I feel like, you have to make a feature to like get money for another feature. Just the influx of short films is like it's a lot. There's a lot right now.
Crowded market, hard to stand out.
Yeah, and funding right now is just like it's terrible. And honestly, I got 15 grand from Oolite because I had submitted to their feature grant program, and I placed second in that. And then I think, they liked a lot other people that were also submitting. So they kind of grouped us together and gave us 15 grand.
I see.
I don't think they knew what I was going to make because you saw that at the screening, like the other movies were kind of like not.
It's totally different. Yes.
Totally different, very drama based.
Right.
And ours was like a fun Indiana Jones.
There was a
and
punch in your face.
Goonies.
It was fantastic. That's right. Yeah. It's just like a thrill ride. It's like a roller coaster.
Right. So and they're an institution. So I don't think they want to make the movie that I want to make, and that's a lot of those grand places are kind of like that, which is cool. Like there's a place for like dramas and more films with like social that can have a social impact, which is that's awesome. Those films are definitely like needed right now. But for like the more fun genre type stuff, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
So I think the way I'm gonna do it, and I encourage a lot of other people to try it, is to do like a fundraiser, which I'm not a stranger to. Like I did a bunch of fundraisers for my comic books. So and those were successful. Now I got to do one for a movie. Can it hit? Can I raise 50, 60 grand? Like I don't know, but I got to try.
That's right. You got to roll the dice and find out.
Yeah.
Michael Ruiz-Unger, thank you so much, man, for being with us. Filmmaker behind Save the Flea. Is Save the Flea online? I know it's not filming online. I know it's not screening online. Is there a handle for it? Any sort of social handle to follow in case?
So I did buy the domain. So savetheflea.com.
Great.
And then if you go there, it takes you to this other website called Shortverse, where they like have a bunch of short films, and like I have like a landing page. It was on there, but I made it private again.
Yep.
But in October it should be public again.
Awesome. So y'all got to go check it out. It's fantastic. Even the landing page will make you want to watch the movie, I promise. So please check it out. You can also find Michael at Skywalker Hands and michaelruizunger.com. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Much love.
Tom. You're the best.
You too, pal. Hey, Thomas here again. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. The show is better when I get to hear from you. Got a question to ask our producer? Or you got a show idea or a guest I should interview? Maybe you just want to tell me that you love or can't stay on the show. Either way, I want to hear from you. You can reach me at bigbreakpod@gmail.com, and you can find my acting profile at castingtom.com or at castingtom. Big Break Pod is created and hosted by me, Thomas M. Copeland. The show is a proud member of the Pod Populi Network. Original music by me. Find the show online at bigbreakpod.com and at bigbreakpod.